The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Hi, CamiBaker.com here. I am the queen of the Happiness Jungle today on the Happiness Jungle TV show. I am super excited to have someone with us today that is going to help us to be healthier, to be wealthier, and to be wiser. Billy the coach was introduced to me by a mutual friend. I was out at a networking event, and as this person heard me just talking and yakking like I do, he said, "Hey," he said, "have you ever heard of Billy the coach?" And I said, "No, I have not, but I would love to." So next thing you know, I'm getting on the phone with this gentleman named Billy the coach, and we hit it off thick as thieves. And I knew when I heard about his material and how much it can transform your life, my life, and anyone's life who is open to transformation, I knew that the people of the Happiness Jungle TV show needed to be privy. So, Billy, please introduce yourself and let us know exactly why they call you Billy the Coach and what is it that you coach on.
Yeah, thank you, Cami. Great to be here. I appreciate Timmy introducing us. Timmy's the man, and just great to be here on the Happiness Jungle. So, yeah, my name is Billy Sheehan, Billy the Coach. The name came from a client of mine that called me Billy the Coach, and it just stuck. And so I think more people call me BTC now than probably call me by Billy. But it all began, my process of getting here began when I co-founded what grew to be a large personal training and nutrition counseling company back in the 1990s. In that process, it became evident that it was really what people think that was the determining factor between whether they succeed health-wise or not. And that led me to a lot of fabulous relationships with business owners and executives. I was a business owner and entrepreneur, and we just hit it off. And the whole program that I do with executives now as an executive health strategist is designed to really uncover the true ability that they have, frankly, that we all have, to become the commander of what we think rather than the victim of what we think. And this has unlimited, I think, opportunity and possibilities, so much unnecessary suffering, injury, medical cost, loss of quality of life. If we can begin to talk a little bit about how people think in more detail, do it strategically, we can impart some really valuable tools onto those folks. But you made a key point, if they're ready. When a person is ready, all the limitations go away.
Well, you know, you and I have talked about that before. We have to be ready and we have to be willing, you know. Everyone is capable. Everyone is capable, but are they ready and willing? And, you know, when I tell people, you know, that I'm going to have Billy the coach and he helps people, especially executives, with their health, there's so many health trainers and nutritionists and people like that, so they get confused. And I really want to make sure that people understand this isn't just about eating right and using the right weights. This is about in here, like shifting your mindset, because all of the weights and all of the right eating in the world is not going to help if our mind's not in the game. Talk to us about how you help people to get their mind in the game.
Yeah, well, that's one of the first parts of the process, is to have a pretty thorough introductory and interview process to find out if they are ready. The best thing that can happen to me as Billy the coach is that if I work with Cami Baker, she has an experience that was so good, so positive, so thought-provoking, she can't resist wanting it for anybody that she cares about, or perhaps the employees that she works with or the employees that work for her. The truth is this, Cami. It's been written by so many people over so many years. As a man thinks, so he lives. As he sees the world, it exists. As he sees himself, he is. All things trace back to the decisions we're making in the moment. But there is a huge tendency for people to define themselves by what they did in the past. And when you do that, you sacrifice the opportunity to focus on being something different right now.
Well, we've talked about that a little bit because who you were and what you were thinking in the past leads you to where you are right now.
Correct.
But in order to shift, change, enhance, grow in the next minute, in the next minute, in the next part of our life, it starts with how we are thinking right now in the present. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, correct. And this is exactly it. Cami. Self-determination exists only in the present. So think about that for a second. Self-determination exists only in the present. We're in the happiness jungle, okay? Am I happy? That's a choice. I have to make a choice. Do I choose to see my life as something, oh, gee, nobody understands the particular pain I'm going through? Or do I choose to see my life that I'm so fortunate to be in the situation, doing what I'm doing, having the life that I live? In the history of our species, there has never been a single act, good or bad, committed by a human being that wasn't preceded by thought. That's the exciting part of where we are right now. That's what's exciting for me. Anytime I get to do a show like this is to say what's happening right now. We have crossed an evolutionary threshold where we know these things now. It's true. It's provable scientifically. We are creating the experience around us through the choices that we make.
Yes, we absolutely are. So what are some of the things that people can do right now? Like, what are some of the simple things? Because, the average person hasn't had this kind of conversation before.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's true. But how exciting is that, Cami?
It is. It's very exciting.
Is that?
And so now that we are being made aware of that, let's take them down some simple ways of shifting.
Absolutely. Real simple.
Yeah.
For any of your listeners, for anyone listening to us right now, Billy the coach, the best thing about Billy the coach is the intelligence of the people who are involved far beyond me. So much good stuff out there. The first thing I would recommend is a book by Gay Hendricks. It's called The Big Leap. Fabulous book. It talks about the upper limit problems that are very common to people. And this is what's so fun about the work, is getting a person in a conversation to the depth where they say, I never thought of that before. I never thought of that before. And that feels good, especially if you're dealing with a guy or a woman who is managing a $1.5 billion company, and you can get them to say, I never thought of that before. It's interesting, Kimmy, to see what can people do right now. It's about understanding. It's about assessing whether you're ready to change or not. And getting people to think about concepts such as every choice happens in the moment. It's all right here. If you smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day for the last 40 years, it may be difficult to not do it today. But we know it's possible, and we know that it's not the nicotine, and we know that it's not the past. We know it's the thinking. And so they're at the first step. Are they ready? I've had enough with smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day. That's a choice. That's now. That's something you can do. And I think we are just getting our first look at this incredible evolutionary turn that we've taken. It is happening through us by the way we think.
Well, and I think one of the ways to shift our habits, when I'm interviewed and people say, what's that one thing that people can do? Change your playgrounds and your playmates. Changing your playgrounds and playmates is my very simple way of saying, who are you hanging out with? So, for example, with the smoking, if everyone around you smokes cigarettes, it's going to be very tough for you to stop smoking cigarettes because it's in your reality. Everyone does it. changing our playgrounds and playmates. So for me, I talk about my alcoholism and how I put the bottle down. Well, it would have been very difficult for me to quit drinking if I had sat at the same bar stool with the same people, all of them doing the same thing, and I'm all of a sudden going to say, you know what, I'm not going to drink.
Right.
Well, how long would that have lasted?
Well, I'm so glad that you mentioned this, Cami, and we've talked about, our own, your challenges, my challenges, challenge I had in my family. But it's an amazing thing when you realize that there are alternatives, there are options for you. You can. I think it was Jim Rohn said, no one can change their destination overnight, but anyone can change their direction in any moment. And that's the part about being ready and moving on, regardless of what the situation is or how challenging it can be. And I think the more we can develop this conversation that it's okay. Sometimes it takes a long time to get to the best you can be. It takes a long time, and you got to fight, and you got to battle, and you got to hang in. And I think we've both seen that in our particular experiences.
So one of the changes and one of the thoughts that I made was, don't go to that bar anymore,
Yeah.
right? Find people who have what I want, It always, for me, goes back to mentorship and who are you hanging out with. So, in that scenario, it's just a very simple example for people to understand. If I wanted to quit drinking, then I needed to find people who didn't drink, and in that scenario, I needed to find a mentor who had what I wanted,
In the book, I mentioned The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. He talks about the 4 most common upper limit problems that people have. One of the 4 is called disloyalty and abandonment. Okay, now tell me this, I know this will ring with you. If I stretch, if I challenge myself to be better than I've ever been before, that can feel like disloyalty and abandonment to the people you've been shoulder to shoulder with for all your life, your friends, your family. It can be even a spouse. If I reach, I can't let myself be fully authentic, fully exposed, because it will be disloyal. If I reach the success I'm capable of, I'm abandoning the people I grew up with. It's not, again, it's all just disjointed thinking. I mean, who would want to hold another back?
I know for me, and to stay on that thought, is that when I did quit drinking, the people around me that drank were the ones that said, oh, you think you're too good now. Oh, you think you're too good to hang out with us. And it was almost like, the crab in the bucket syndrome that we hear about,
I don't think I've heard that one.
You haven't heard the crab in the bucket syndrome?
Crab in the bucket.
Well, if a crab is trying to crawl out of the bucket, the person's trying to stop drinking. But in the physical scenario, the crab is trying to crawl out of the bucket. Well, there's other crabs in there, and the crabs are pulling on the other crab, on the crab that's trying to get out. They're not thinking, I'm going to pull that crab back down in,
right.
But they're trying to crab and to crawl out too. So they, by osmosis, are pulling the crab back down into the bucket.
That's right.
And so it's the crab in the bucket syndrome of the other crabs that are trying to pull you back in.
Right. And so think about it. Think about that's a great example, Cami, and it opens up the whole concept of what we're talking about. It's about what they're thinking.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, what if they find themselves standing over Cami's casket because her drinking problems caused her to drive off the road and get killed or kill somebody else? What are they thinking when they're standing there? Now, if someone is sufficiently trained, again, to be the commander of what you think rather than the victim of what you think, then a reasonably sober, they'd have to be sober, by the way, person could say, maybe Cami's right. There's an interesting saying, Cami, you might have heard it before. That which we dislike about others tends to reflect what we dislike most about ourselves. So imagine here's Cami or anyone trying to shake a drug or an alcohol or a cigarette thing, and people start breaking your cookies about it. Well, when that pillow hits when their head hits the pillow that night, they're probably thinking, that's maybe that's something I should think about a little bit more. Maybe if they choose to. Some will, some won't.
So when people work with you, they work with you in individual ways, there's group programs. What's your favorite way to really work with people?
Easiest question of the day. I love to get to know people. I love to have a mutual investment of time, understanding, know who they are, get them to explain their experience. So the breadcrumb trail that we hope to create is preceded by the breadcrumb trail that got us there. And when, as I was saying to Dick earlier, people don't want to be judged. People don't want to be corrected. People don't want to be told what to do. People want to be accompanied. Mm-hmm. And when I was first doing personal training, I was all about, oh, listen, I'm the first guy that'll clap for you, but I'm the first guy that'll bury my Nike in your backside if you don't suck it up. It's kind of, and I'm glad I matured out of that, because it's not about them. I've found in my work, it's you are much more effective if you meet people where they are, mm-hmm. instead of being disappointed that they're not meeting you where you are. Mm-hmm. Everyone is on a learning curve. We're on a learning curve about ourselves. That's the hardest one of all.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the hardest one of all. We're on a learning curve about relationships. We're on a learning curve about what the hell are we doing here? What's my purpose? And as I mentioned, when that guy's head hits the pillow at night, for a lot of people, that can be a very, very scary thing. So how cool is it to be able to say to them, I want you to practice something. All fear and anxiety is rooted in the future. All of it. Hmm. All anger and frustration is rooted in the past. Everything in your life happens in the present. So when you put your head on the pillow at night, practice being there. Let the past go. The future will be waiting for you when you wake up. I'm telling you, Cami, more people have said to me, when you told me that, it just seemed to click something. And I took, I tried it a few times, but when I realized it's just me, it's just here, it's just now, and I'm not the victim of any distracting or negative thoughts that are imposing upon me. Mm-hmm. I'm the source. I'm the progenitor. And so all this, it's just great to see these things come to be in people's lives. See them encounter the fact that, wow, I am creating this. I'm creating my success, but I'm also holding myself back in some ways.
There's so much power in that. So much power in taking responsibility and really understanding and owning that I am creating this. And when we realize, and that was a really big thing for me, and I don't mean to keep harping on the alcohol, but I think that that's a great place to understand. When I realized that I was the creator of that, genetics aside and society and all that, that's a different conversation. But, when I realized that I was responsible, that's a very powerful place to be, because if everything in my life, if I'm responsible for that, if I really own that I created that, wow, that's so freeing. Because if I created that, I can create anything. And if I can create anything, then what do I want to create? I've heard it said, people don't have a hard time, they don't have a hard time obtaining their goals. They have a hard time setting them. They have a hard time setting them. So when people can, in this case, set the goal of not drinking for the day, or whatever the goal is. So taking responsibility, knowing that I am the creator, and that is so freeing, because if I created that, I can create anything.
The thing that I love, Cami, I've gotten a kick out of you. We've had some great conversations about our backgrounds, right? You grew up in Florida, down in Keys, and I grew up in Revere, Mass, just north of Boston. And so I'm very proud of my roots. I didn't come from some academic environment. I didn't come from some mystical origin, background, or anything like that. And sometimes I see people hear that. Oh, wait a second. I think I'm hearing what this guy's saying. Oh, it's all about me, and it's all about now, and it's all about whatever I want. That sounds like BS to me. There's no greater proof of what we're saying. As you see yourself, you are. And if that's how you want to live and that's what you want to do, I'm the first one to applaud you. But you said, who do I like to work with the most? I love to work with executives. I love to, because what I've come to understand is the greater the pressure, the greater the potential. The greater pressure a person is under. Pressure forges us, right? The hottest fires make the hardest steel.
Yeah.
Right? And the executive thing, I think you alluded to it a minute ago, Cami. It doesn't make anyone better if they can talk about how they think. It's not about being academic. It's not about being superior. Frankly, I think if you've got any kind of mental act together, humility leads the way. Humility, okay, followed closely by gratitude. It astonishes me to this day that we have such an understanding of the human body. What an extraordinary example of nature's creative force that it is. A heart that beats 100,000 times every single day. Lungs that breathe 17,000 times every day. A machine that knows how to digest its food and maintain its temperature. Yet, we talk about, well, it's my genes. Your genes are an extraordinary, unexplainable example of nature's creation. We are so designed for success. But just like people didn't know much about cell phones 100 years ago, we've passed a point. The genie is out of the bottle. And we know now that without judgment, without ridicule, but with compassion and information sharing, we can help a person turn the mind in upon itself. And when you train yourself, and it's easy, it's learnable like anything else, like playing a musical instrument, when you learn to more effectively turn your mind in upon itself, basically, you've set the table to become the master of the very instrument which sets your limitations. That's extraordinary, if you ask me.
And when you learn how to play your instrument right,
there's no limits, Cami. There's no limits. I think, without getting too far into the weeds, I don't think people see God herself in the mirror in the morning. They don't see it. They don't see it.
Yeah.
Not yet. Some of us do. Because it's not about you. It's about life. It's about time and how these extraordinary entities interact to create an environment where every single thing you ever choose to do happens in the present moment. You don't have to worry about anything else.
And when people come to Billy the coach to learn about living a healthier life, they aren't expecting to have these kinds of conversations.
It's a classic, Cami, right? There's, just this morning, I was saying to a gentleman I've worked with for probably 12 years now, I think. And I said, Alan, isn't it great? Here we are having a conversation that took an investment of many, many years to arrive at. So yeah, they think, as I always say, if you need a 59-year-old man to tell another grown adult to eat his asparagus, I'm not your guy. I'm not your guy. I don't mean that disrespectfully, but you've got to do a little bit of work. You've got to be able to recognize extraordinary when you see it. And extraordinary is right here. It's right here. It's the gentleman in the other room. It's the people driving by. We just don't see it quite yet. It's out of the bottle, but it needs work.
So when they come to you, do they say things like, "Well, Billy, tell me what to eat. Like, what workout regimen am I supposed to have?" Like,
yeah. So I came from, I mentioned, the personal training world, right?
Yeah.
So I don't do that anymore. My skill, my time with my clients is best spent in their head, not in the gym.
Yeah.
So if we need a trainer, we're going to get one.
Yeah.
If we need a chiropractor, we're going to get one. If we need
Yeah.
a nutritionist, we're going to get one. But we're going to position this person, as long as they show up, as long as they're ready to lace them up. We're going to take them through a process no one could anticipate, no one.
So how do they typically find you? How do they typically, and of course, I'm sure there's a lot of referrals and things like that, but you have different programs and things where, for example, you and I have talked about doing something that's very experiential and putting 100 people in the room.
Right.
And educating them and talking to them about what we're talking about, but on a much deeper level.
Correct.
So how do they typically find you and want to work in this type of modality? Because this is a very different modality.
Yeah, people don't know what they don't know, Cami.
Yeah, they don't.
And Billy the Coach, I think, as I've said, Billy the Coach is a master's class in health and fitness.
Yeah.
Any reasonably motivated individual has a sufficient knowledge of nutrition. We all improve, of course. Any reasonably motivated person knows that exercise is good for you. But the greatest power on earth is a focused human mind governing a healthy human brain. And when you accompany a person to that threshold, when you expose them to that reality, you just sit back and just watch what people are capable of. We see it all the time now. The internet, in a way, Cami, the internet has revealed us. For every person that was destroyed by their circumstances, another person was elevated. Someone who couldn't lose weight, right, is capable now of seeing story after story through the connectedness of the web about people that have done it. It can be done. It's about what we think, and that's why, Cami, just one last point. We don't have a health care problem in the United States. We have a health carelessness problem in the United States. I'm not here to tell people how to live. But when people want to do better and they begin to see the true potential in themselves, that's a beautiful space to work in.
Well, you know, there was a couple of other great questions I had for you, but it would take 10 minutes for you to answer each one of them. And we've only got 29 seconds left. So what's one of the last things that you just want to leave people with that will help them to do the next right thing for themselves?
Yeah, my comment there, learn to believe in yourself. Learn to understand that your limitations are self-imposed. You are without limit.
You are without limit. Well, on that note, I think we couldn't end on a better last note than that. Billy, it has been my honor.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming and gracing us with your presence.
Thank you for having
and
me.
with so much of your wisdom. Thank you so much. CamiBaker.com, Queen of the Happiness Jungle, and we will see you next time as we on the Happiness Jungle. Bye-bye.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.